kids. Sorry we're late.
In today's JRPG Watch, are modern JRPGs too damn long, or are there just too many of them? I'm going hands-on with these JRPGs at the Tokyo Game Show. Yakuza sails the high seas, and more. So what do you think? Have JRPGs gotten too long, or are there just too many to play? At this point, I'd kindly like to ask developers to chill for a year so I can catch up. In 2024 alone, we've gotten hundreds of hours of highly dramatic party-based adventures set in fantastical worlds, and like Japan and Hawaii, I guess. According to HowLongToBeat.com, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth can rack up anywhere between 60 to 110 hours. Persona 3 Reload runs over 80 hours. Completionists of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth probably had to use all their vacation days to hit 160 hours. Best Game Name of the Year nominee Unicorn Overlord clocks in at around 60 hours. Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes comes in around 60 hours too. Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance concludes around the 70-hour mark, and never mind tacking on the hours spent on the initial release. Thankfully, last month's Visions of Mana will only steal about 40 hours of your time. Not that I've had time for it to steal. Still, I'd thank Ooka Studios personally if they weren't shut down by NetEase. But 2024 didn't end with Visions of Mana, oh no. If you watched the last and first ever JRPG Watch, you'd know that we're up against Kefka with only one party member left and no Phoenix Downs. It'll be tough to hang in there. Don't be surprised when Metaphor ReFantazio on October 11th saps upwards of 100 hours like Persona 5 did. According to a recent interview with Katsura Hashino, conducted by the Spanish website Vandal, it'll run about the same length as its predecessor with some extra post-game content. Don't quote me on that though, I got a C in Spanish like 16 years ago. Romancing Saga 2 Revenge of the Seven gives little to no breathing room, releasing on October 24th. Which is no time at all to finish both before Mario and Luigi Brothership on November 7th. The mustachioed bros will have to rush to save Concordia before Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake releases on November 14th, though then we have a break until the new year. And that's not taking into account playing games of other genres. I can't stop playing Baldur's Gate 3, for example. And some people like watch TV series and stuff in their free time. Weird, right? So this raises my initial question. Are modern JRPGs just too long, or there are too many of them? 2024 seems like a particularly insane year if you want to keep up with them all. Personally, as someone predispositioned to 100% or nearly 100% complete just about every game I play, I do think they've gotten a little too lengthy. This comes from not getting many games during my childhood and trying to make them last, especially when the JRPGs of the 90s rarely breached that 40-hour mark. It was one of the reasons I played Pokemon Red and later Gold over and over. There was a lot of replayability with different teams, and if I had a long weekend, I could start over and take down the Elite Four before I was back in class. It's something I'm working on, but it also means I avoid certain JRPGs until there's a lull where I can really invest in them. But there hasn't really been a lull this year. Persona 5 actually instilled this caution in me way back in 2017. It's one of my favorite JRPGs, but I had to put it down for a few months to catch up on other games. The Switch, you see, was a hip young console at the time and not the geriatric one we have now, with a lot of games I really wanted to play. Sure, I could have skipped clearing every level of the mementos or spent less time fusing demons, and I did still finish it, but it did take a concentrated effort to do so. As a result, I've enjoyed the not-so-Japanese JRPGs we've got in the last couple of years like Chained Echoes and Sea of Stars. They're 30-ish hours each without a lot of side content, which makes them far more digestible. Really, what I'm getting at is that there's just so many great games, JRPGs or otherwise, that make starting a new JRPG a daunting task. It's why I haven't hopped on Final Fantasy VII Rebirth either, a Game of the Year contender, because I feel like I need a clear window to even get started on an over 100-hour undertaking. Even then, I might fall into the camp that resents all the open-world side objectives and drop it for half a year. At the same time, I'm sure a lot of people picked up Rebirth, and that's the only JRPG they're playing this year, with all that quote-unquote open-world bloat a positive rather than a negative. And maybe they're not super interested in the genre as a whole, or they didn't bother with Shadow of the Erdtree and aren't paying any mind to Astrobot like I currently am. To each their own. I think that's the conclusion of my little rant. I do think that JRPGs have gotten too long, and I'm struggling to keep up as an enthusiast. On the other hand, if you're not as invested in the genre as I am, you're probably getting more than your money's worth. But what about you? Do you prefer your JRPGs longer and don't think there are too many releases this year? Or would you prefer more games like the concise journeys of yesteryear, simply so you could experience them all? As always, let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll definitely take the time to respond. Oh, by the way, have you met my Shiba Zelda? She's here to remind you to like and subscribe. If you don't, she'll be very sad. Thanks! Did you know the Tokyo Game Show is happening this week? I'm heading there to cover it for a couple of different outlets, but I'm most looking forward to playing the pretty nice lineup of JRPGs they have on show. These include Metaphor ReFantazio, Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake, and I believe this is the first time that Suikoden 1 and 2 HD Remaster will be hands-on. It's unclear if the demos for the former two will be different from what we saw at Gamescom. I am, however, most excited for the latter, as it's been too long without any love for Suikoden, given the general disappointment around Eiyuden Chronicle. I think I can also see for myself whether or not Final Fantasy VII Rebirth runs better on the PlayStation 5 Pro. Regardless, I'll share my thoughts on all of the above and more on a post-TGS JRPG Watch, so have an eye out for that. Speaking of TGS, Square Enix and Sega have sales on Steam right now in honor of the event, including huge discounts on pretty much every Final Fantasy, Persona, and Yakuza game. I'd pick up Persona 3 Reload for 40% off if it weren't for the first 5 minutes of this video where I whined about how little time I have to play JRPGs. Sega's sale runs until the 27th, and it looks like Square Enix games will last until September 28th. And speaking of Yakuza, did you see this? Yeah, Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza looks bananas, and is the push I need to get into the series. I've put it off as I lean more towards fantasy settings. It was revealed during a pre-TGS event hosted by the developers Ryuga Gotoku, and comes out on February 28th of 2025. So I have time to finish Yakuza Like a Dragon and Infinite Wealth, right? Gene Park over on Elon Musk's Vanity Project shared a quote from his Washington Post interview with RGG studio director Masayoshi Yokoyama. In it, Yokoyama explained how they reuse assets for the Yakuza series to produce games more quickly than other series like Assassin's Creed, which pretty much reinvent the environmental wheel with every new iteration. It looks like by the time I catch up on the Yakuza series, another 2 will be announced. Also, if Pirate Yakuza is playable at TGS, I'll be sharing my thoughts on the next JRPG Watch. In not so fun news, depending on how much you like Square Enix, it's been reported that Final Fantasy XVI and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth undersold expectations. This comes from an article written by Ed Nightingale over at Eurogamer, who dissected a recently made public financial report. Nightingale does note that this report was conducted back in May, so the sales for Rebirth may have gotten stronger in the months since. Still, it's quite interesting to see such a critically lauded game underselling despite how well Final Fantasy VII Remake did. I don't think there's any way they don't make a Final Fantasy VII Revival or Retribution or Ragnarok. Wait, no, that's a Sony game already. Maybe people aren't buying it because it's so huge and they don't have the time to invest in it. Or is it just me? One series that is meeting sales expectations are the Trails games. They've reached 8.5 million copies sold worldwide as reported by Silicon Era. I'm still pretty excited for the Switch remake of Trails in the Sky myself. So what's releasing in the world of JRPGs? Not much it seems. Romancing Saga 2 Revenge of the Seven just got a demo across all platforms except for Xbox. Your progress carries over into the main game, so there's really no reason not to check this out if you're at all curious. Reviews for the English version of Reynatus have also dropped, though it isn't out until the 28th. For those that don't know, Reynatus is an action RPG with a couple prominent Kingdom Hearts devs at the helm, including composer Yoko Shimomura. As such, great music is about all the good reviewers have had to say about Reynatus, with it getting several scores around the 5 out of 10 range. James Kennedy had this to say in his review for The Gamer. Reynatus is one of the most miserable experiences I have had with a game in decades. It is an ugly, repetitive mess that houses some of the worst writing the medium has to offer. Outside of the OST, there is almost nothing of value here. Ouch. Finally, I'd like to wrap up by highlighting this slick JRPG-inspired game called Beyond Galaxy Land. I was harassing my editors for a review code for this, but they didn't want to pay me to take it on. Regardless, it looks like a stunning science fantasy adventure, and I'm definitely going to put together a review roundup for the next JRPG Watch. It's out in a couple of days on the 24th, so don't be surprised if Beyond Galaxy Land creates some noise in RPG circles soon. And that's all I have for you for this second ever JRPG Watch. I'd like to take a moment to thank you all for the love you showed me for the first edition, hitting over 2,000 views and 100 likes. It really does motivate me to keep on making these videos and learn new editing techniques and stuff. If you have a moment, let me know what you think of JRPG Watch so far in the comments. Cheers!